Every day you're not split testing, your brand is actively losing out on revenue. So today I have this mirror board open because I want to show you the exact numbers your brand is losing out on. Since we're all e-commerce operators or brand owners, we all go through dashboards and look at numbers multiple times a day, every day. I'm going to run the numbers here on Miro. We're going to use as an example a brand that does roughly 7 figures a year in revenue. But if you're doing multiple 7 figures a year to 8 figures to multiple 8 figures to even 9 figures, this is even more important because as you scale up, the numbers become exponentially bigger. And I'm not just going to explain the ROI on winning tests because that's obvious to everyone. I'm going to also showcase how losing tests are an opportunity for a big ROI. So keep watching until the end because I'm also going to show that. So for the purpose of the example, we're going to use a brand that does roughly 100K visitors a month. This can be obviously from any source. Let's just say 100K visitors a month to have a nice round number. So 100K visitors a month. They are converting, let's say, at 2%. So they have 2% CVR. I'm just using averages from Shopify. 2% seems to be a good average out there. And so 100K visitors per month, 2% CVR. That means that 2,000 conversions in total are happening right now with 100K visitors per month and 2% CVR. We have 2,000 total conversions. And let's say our AOV in this situation is, for example, $60. It might be a good AOV to use for the example here. With these numbers, this means that our monthly revenue is $120,000 a month with the numbers we have here. Excuse the horrible handwriting, but I'm running with the mouse on the computer, so that's how we're going to do this right now. So 100K visitors per month, 2% CVR, 2,000 conversion total with a $60 AOV, we get $120,000 a month in revenue. Since I want to show you how big of an ROI CRO has, even with small improvements, we're going to make 3 examples here of the type of results you can get. So one example would be conservative results, so small improvements. The second example would be average results, so you can expect some good improvements here in the average results from split tests. And the third example would be great improvements, so what you can expect from CRO if you do it the right way, if you follow every step, and if you do it from start to finish exactly like it should be done. For all of these 3 examples, we're going to use a very, very conservative timeline of 3 months. As I've mentioned in a lot of my CRO videos, CRO needs time. So over the long term, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, that's where you actually see the big improvements and the incremental improvements that you get from split testing. So 3 months is also very conservative. So consider that when we're going to go through these examples. And in this 3-month timeline, for every example, we're going to run 3 tests per month. So every example is going to get, let's say, so the timeline is 3 months. We're going to run 3 tests per month. So the total tests we're going to be running is 9 tests. So every example is going to get 9 tests here. So let's start from the conservative example. So we have our 9 tests that we've mentioned previously. We're going to be running 3 tests per month over a time span of 3 months. So let's say in the conservative example, we have 3 winning tests. So 3 wins. We have 3 inconclusive tests. So they're neither winning nor losing, inconclusive. And let's say we have 3 losing tests, so 3 lost tests. Everything you manage to get out of these 9 tests, so the collective result of all of these tests is just a 10% improvement in CVR. So let's say 10% improvement in CVR. And let's say, for example, a $3 improvement in AOV. So $3 AOV. So out of these 9 tests, the total result you managed to get is a very conservative improvement of 10% in CVR and $3 AOV. That means that now our monthly revenue with a 10% increase in CVR and a $3 increase in AOV is $138,600. So now this is our new monthly revenue with the improvements we've gotten here. Definitely very, very conservative. Let's multiply this by 3, which is the timeline we're using here for the test. This here comes out to $415,800 in revenue over those 3 months with the improvement we've mentioned here, the 10% CVR and $3 AOV. That means over the 3 months we have $415K in revenue, which in incremental revenue from the 120,000 a month basis we started with, that's a $55,800 in incremental revenue we've added just from the split test in the 3-month time span, with very conservative improvements, with actually pretty bad results in terms of tests, because 3 wins, 3 inconclusive, and 3 lost is pretty bad in terms of record for the test run. So we have those very small improvements, and already with those small improvements, we've had multiple 5 figures in revenue in a timeline that's not even that big for CRO, which is 3 months. So already 3 months, pretty bad results. We've added 55,000 in incremental revenue from split testing. Now, without having to go through all of the numbers again, for the average situation, we have 5 wins, 1 inconclusive, and 3 lost. Let's say the improvement is 20% CVR and $6 AOV. It's already a better scorecard here. We have more wins, a little bit less inconclusive tests, a little bit better improvements, 20% CVR, $6 AOV over a 3-month time span. It's somewhat expectable. This means that our revenue per month right now is $158,400 per month. Multiplied by 3, we have $475,200 in revenue over that 3-month time span where we split tested. That means that in only a time span of 3 months, with no additional cost, by the way, which is something I forgot to mention because we didn't spend anything more in ads. We have the same amount of traffic coming in from the same ads, from the same spend, in only a 3-month timeline, which I keep repeating is not a lot for CRO. We've added $115,000 in incremental revenue just from 9 tests, with a little better scorecard than before. And for the last example, the great example, we have 7 wins, 1 inconclusive, and 1 lost. That amounts to 25% increase in CVR, a $15 increase in AOV. That means that now our monthly revenue is $187,500 multiplied by the 3-month time span. We have $560,500 in total revenue over the 3-month time span. That means at $202,500 result in incremental revenue improvements over a 3-month time span with great test results. And I know I keep repeating myself, but 3 months is not a lot for CRO. It's actually a very small timeline for CRO. You can keep going for 6, 9, 12 months. These numbers get bigger and bigger. These improvements keep stacking over time. And remember that over time, the baseline gets higher and higher, because if you improve your CVR, let's say by 10% every month, the month after you're starting by a 10% higher baseline. The baseline gets higher, the test improvement gets bigger, and the results scale over time to compound to massive numbers in incremental revenue. And this is basically free revenue because you're not spending more money by running these tests. You're running these tests to the same amount of traffic you were running before from your ads. You're not spending more to run the tests. Now I want to show you what I was mentioning at the beginning of the video, which is you're getting an ROI with split testing even if a test loses. And I'm going to show you this exactly right now with the numbers. So let's say you're running a test. So we have another test here, which is separated from all of the other tests we run. We're making an example and a case here for just one test. So let's say we're running a test. So we're adding it here. We have a test, and this test, unfortunately, we run it. This is going to happen if you're going to start split testing. You need to get used to this. There are tests that are going to lose. It's, for example, we run a test, and that test reduces our conversion rate by 20%. That's a pretty big hit. A test that reduces CVR by 20% is not a good sight to have. So let's say we get a test that reduces CVR by 20%, which is a pretty big, hefty hit. So now our conversion rate is not 2% anymore. So we are going from 2% CVR to 1.6% CVR. So now our CVR from 2% is going to 1.6. That means that from $120,000 a month in revenue, we have dropped to roughly 96K a month in revenue. That's the rough drop here from a 20% drop in CVR. We lost roughly 25K in monthly revenue, which is a pretty big hit. And so this test is completely losing. We made sure it's significant. We made sure to run it for enough time to have a big enough sample size. We confirmed that the test is losing. Why is there an ROI on even this losing test right here? Because if you are going to make this change without running the test, so if you're going to apply this change, not test it and just have it there on the store, you were never going to know that this test and this change you made actually ruined your CVR without testing it. So here you didn't lose 25K. So the loss here was actually 24K. Let's make it precise, 24K a month. You didn't lose 24K a month. This is actually loss avoidance. If you didn't test this, you were for sure going to lose that 24K a month if you didn't split test it. Now, since you have split testing and you know that this change is not helping your CVR, you're going to revert to the control and you avoided losing 24K a month in revenue. Imagine over a long enough time span with all of the changes you make to your stores, to your funnels, how big of a loss avoidance you can get. Even let's say in the most brutal situation where all the tests you run are losing, you are still loss avoiding and very big hefty chunk of revenue. And it's funny because CRO is one of those very few things where if you have winning tests, then you get a very clear incremental ROI in revenue here, incremental, and it's very clear, it's tracked, it's precise. You don't have to just go around and look at random numbers. It's incremental. You know exactly how much in revenue the change or the test has added. So this is supposed to be incremental here. If you have winning tests, you get an ROI that's incremental on your revenue and is clear. But if you even have losing tests, just as we said, you also have an ROI in terms of loss avoidance on your revenue. And you know exactly that that change that you just made that hurt your revenue or your conversion rate or your revenue per visitor has a bad ROI. So you're not going to implement it. You're going to keep your control and you're going to control the loss of the revenue you might have had if you implemented the change without split testing. That means that if you're running a brand anywhere over 7 figures per year, multiple 7 figures, 8 figures, multiple 8 figures, you simply cannot afford not to split test. The ROI, even in the most brutal situation when all of your tests are losing, is simply too high. So if you're not split testing, or if you're already split testing and want to pass from average or mediocre results to great results where you can stack improvements faster and scale even harder, then you can book a free audit call in the first link in the description with me. We're going to see if we can implement and actually help your brand with our split testing system that we've implemented for multiple 7 and 8 figure brands. If you want to get my free 60-page PDF on how to implement this system from A to Z, you can subscribe to my email list in the second link in the description, and you'll also get weekly emails with tips and hacks on how you can split test better and build better funnels for your brand. See you in the next video.